guys. Okay, so today on the pod, we have me, Morgan, your host, and I'm really excited for today's episode because, first of all, if you participated in suggesting any questions and submitting to the form that I put out, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This episode would not be possible without you. And I'm so nervous because it's just me. I'm kind of interviewing myself, I guess. So this episode is going to be a combination of all of the things that I've learned. So, if you aren't as familiar with me, hi, my name's Morgan, and I've been performing pretty regularly for the past decade or so now. Since I was in the third grade, I was itty bitty, and I have dedicated my life to pursuing this art form. So, I have been to so many workshops and classes and conventions and had so many different conversations with so many amazing people, including the guests on this show. And through that, I've learned a ton. And so I'm going to try and give the best advice that I can today because this resource is supposed to be what I just said, a resource for people who don't have the opportunity to fly to different places and learn from industry professionals or agents or casting directors. And I have been really lucky to have conversations with a lot of great people. And so I'm going to try and give all of the information I have accumulated and that my friends have accumulated and passed on to me through different conversations and advice into this episode. So that way it can kind of be one place you can visit on your feed that hopefully can help give you some answers on how to move forward in this crazy world. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so there were so many amazing questions that were submitted. So I really tried to kind of break them up into sections. So that way everything would kind of be a little bit similar in the little mini conversations that we're going to have throughout this episode. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to kind of get started with auditions. So huge shout out to Thrin, Robin, Bella, Emily, and Future Star for submitting questions for this segment. So first, where do people find auditions, even if you live in the middle of nowhere? So I love Playbill.com, Backstage.com, Actors Access, and researching what casting offices are casting your favorite shows. Like I know Telsey is a huge one. TRC is another that casts shows like Six and the Mamma Mia and Back to the Future on Broadway tour. So make sure to follow these companies as well as other theaters that you want to work with on Instagram and on social media because a lot of the time they will post what shows they're doing, when their auditions are, and what they're expecting you to prepare, etc., on their social media pages. And so especially make sure to keep an eye out for those in between November and April because that's kind of audition season. So what's the sizing needed for headshots? So typically you're going to want to print those out as an 8x10 on photo paper, just like regular glossy, nice quality photo paper. And then what you're going to do is you're going to stick that back to back with your resume. So that way your headshots on one side and your resume, all the information is facing outward on the other one. You're going to line them up. You're going to staple them together at the four corners. And then you're going to cut off the excess of the resume because a standard sheet of printing paper is 8x11 and the headshot needs to be 8x10. So just make sure that you're centering everything the best you can and making sure that none of the information on your resume is getting cut off, and then make sure to just staple it and cut it, and that's all you have to do. And how important is it to invest money into expensive headshots? So I personally think, and I think it's industry standard, that it's very important because not only is it a representation of you, I mean, like there's a million other people coming into the audition every day, and that piece of paper is what is reminding casting what you look like. It might help them remember your audition, etc. So putting your best foot forward in that way when it's like a concrete representation of who you were in the room and how you did, I think is really important. And it's also really important because especially now that everything's starting to digitalize, that picture needs to stand out when it's 1 inch tall compared to a million other photos on a casting director's screen. So I think that it's really important to have good ones. So, some advice for those, just in general, make sure it looks like you. Don't have like a makeup team go crazy on a makeover or all of a sudden change your hair or show up to an audition looking unlike your headshot. Make sure that your headshot looks like you, and also don't pay $1 million. Ask your friends, ask your friends for great photographers because we're all trying to get them without spending an arm and a leg, right? Ask for it as a Christmas present. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach headshots in a budget friendly way. I wouldn't be paying, this is going to be sound kind of crazy, but just look up the prices and you won't be super surprised. I wouldn't be paying much more than 1500 at the most, but it also depends on how many looks you want, how many photos you want, the area you're in, etc. So just make sure to do your research and find a photographer who is not going to break your bank and that you really love their style. What are some good audition outfits? So remember that you're interviewing for a job. Dress in the style of the show in general. So for like Rock of Ages, some ripped jeans and some eyeliner. For Les Mis, a dress or like a nicer outfit. I like to kind of compare it to Disney bounding, like dress up for the vibe of the show and not a specific character. When in doubt, research other actors on self-tapes on Instagram or TikTok and steal from them. Like there's a lot of music theater baddies out there who are rocking it with the self-tapes. So like again, kind of steal like an artist and see what other people are wearing. Like, is everyone in a matching set and a LaDuca boot for the dance call? So just kind of get the vibe of the show and then curate an outfit that represents who you are, but it also makes sure that the casting team can see you in the show. Best audition tip that you can give to beginners: be prepared. If you don't know the answer to something, look it up. Ask a friend. Do your research on the show and the company that you're auditioning for. There are so many things to be nervous about in an audition, so don't let one of the reasons be that you don't know your material or that you don't know who you're auditioning for. There is nothing worse than being left high and dry in an audition because you weren't prepared going in. And a best audition tip I can give to people who have been doing this for a while, this one is from my queen, Mary-Kate Morrissey. There is always someone out there that is working harder than you are. I know it sounds harsh, but even I can get into the lull of like, oh, I already know the show, so I don't need to go over that song one more time. Or, oh, I know the casting team, or I've auditioned here before, so it doesn't really matter as much for me to put my best foot forward because they know me. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. There's always someone out there who is putting in 1% more effort than you, and that is what will eventually lead to their success. Commitment, obviously. Like, this all shouldn't come at the expense of your mental, physical, financial, spiritual well-being, etc. Like, there are boundaries to committing yourself to things. But kind of like the answer to the last question, don't let the reason that you don't meet the goals and aspirations you've set for yourself be you. Let it be something else. All right. Then what's the best way to put yourself out there? Say hi. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody ignores you? People in this industry, and I'd be willing to bet most industries, are generally super nice. And this project is a prime example. People who have been doing this for a while are generally more than willing to help young artists who are first starting out. So make sure to go up to people and thank them if they teach you a workshop. Follow them on Instagram. Ask them to get coffee. Reach out to people who are touring in your city. If you go to New York, ask to shadow someone backstage. Listen to my episode with Larry. You will see that he's a stage manager and therapist. He's amazing. Our episode together was one of my favorites. So if you want to learn more about shadowing backstage, if you're listening from more of the techie side, make sure to go listen to that episode. Anyway, networking, I feel like, is such a scary word. So I personally love to reframe it as just saying hi. Just get to know people. I mean, Zach, for example, Zach Bravo, he's going to be, I believe, the first episode for this project. He taught a workshop for the Patty Duke Awards, and we got to make a connection. I just said hi and shook his hand and said, thank you for being here before the workshop started. And we got to talking about him working. And I found out that he worked in the regional theater that was in the town where my dad grew up in Pennsylvania. And we were able to make a connection off of that. And because we were able to have a really good conversation, and I felt comfortable enough to we followed each other on Instagram, all these things, I felt comfortable comfortable enough to ask him if he'd be willing to get coffee so I could just like pick his brain. This was last year. So I was like really trying to get an idea of what this year would look like for audition season for me and things like that. And we sat down for an hour. He bought me lunch. Like he was incredibly sweet. And now like we've kept in touch, and a year later, he's going to be the first guest on the show. So don't be afraid to ask people to help you, because again, like I said, people who have been doing this for a while are usually more than willing to help. How do I pick a good song for an audition? Again, kind of like with the audition outfit thing, pick something in the style of the show. So if, like, for example, if you're auditioning for a Disney show, pick something that's princess-esque, like the bright colors is kind of showing off the character that you want, but isn't directly that character. Like if you're auditioning for Six, pick a belty pop song. If you're auditioning for Oklahoma, pick something from the Golden Age, et cetera, et cetera. So like 3 concrete tips I have are, if you're going for a certain character, pick a song that has the same bones of the material that they sing in the show. So, like, for example, if I was auditioning for Elsa, I would pick a song that shows I have strength in my lower range and shows off that I can belt an E flat for Let It Go and Monster. When picking a song or a 32-bar cut, make sure that the song takes your character on an emotional journey. Make sure it's clear why that character is singing the song, and it'll help translate your acting songs in the room. And then also when you're picking a cut, try and make sure that it's a song that allows a cut that's easy for the accompanist to read. Is there a page turn after the first measure? Is it written by a composer with a crazy hard piano part or really weird rhythms? Sondheim and Jason Robert Brown, I'm looking at you. There is only one person in the audition room that can have a direct effect on how your audition is going to go, and that is the accompanist. So make sure to treat them and your audition cut as such. What steps do you need to take to get an agent? So if you're in a BFA program or a BA program even that has a senior showcase, that's going to be a huge opportunity for you, right? Like that's an opportunity for your class to make professional films for things like your reels and things, to be able to either send out to agents, or you're able to fundraise, or your school is going to pay for all of those agents to come to you and do material, kind of do something that's summative of your last 4 years of college. And then they can say, oh, I loved this, I loved that. And then they can decide to sign you right outside of school. So like, and for any people who are thinking about going into this next year auditioning for MT schools, really look and see what schools have showcases and which don't. Usually a lot of the bigger BFA programs are going to, but some smaller programs might not. And so as long as you go in knowing what your strategy is going to have to be to get representation, if you want representation, just have that be something that you know when you are applying to schools. Anyway, but if you don't go to a school that has a senior showcase like mine, I've been told by various different sources that self-submitting is usually the way to go. So whether that is blind submitting with reels and a headshot, and being like, hello, do you have a spot on your roster for me, XYZ? I can do a whole separate episode on that, so I'm not going to get too into it. But that is like blind submitting. If you Google that, I'm sure that there's a lot of resources online, is one that you can do. Or a personal favorite is that if you see that a show that like you're dying to be in is being cast by a certain agency, then reach out to them with the materials that are being asked of you for the audition and the specific role that you're interested in. So like say that my casting company is doing Les Mis, and you send in a video that is like a couple songs from the show, like whatever was in the character breakdown, and then you sent your headshot. Hey, my name is Morgan, and I see that your agency is casting Les Mis. Here are my materials for XYZ. I think that I'd be a great fit for Eponine. I look forward to hopefully being able to work with you. And that's it. Like very short, sweet, and succinct. So that way that poor casting agent doesn't have to like go through and send you to a million different people. But also if you don't have your own representation, that's a great way to get in front of people, is being able to reach out to agencies directly about something specific. So that way, if it's just a blind email, sometimes they can be like, oh, we're not accepting these, we're not going to look at these. But if it's like for something specific, so like for like the Boop national tour I know is going out right now, if you think that you are so perfect for one of those characters, look up who's casting it and submit something really specific to them and say that you think that you'd be a great fit. That could be a whole separate episode. So make sure to leave in the comments below if you think that I should make that. And then there are also open calls for representations. Like I know that a lot of agencies will just do representation open calls. So you can go and audition in person for agencies, or there's acting studios and things like that who do agent showcases that can get you put in front of things. Or if you're able to kind of network your way into, say, like an industry presentation and there's agencies there, just like being able to get in front of people is important. All right. So, for this next segment, thank you so much to Thrin and Bella for asking these few questions. So, where do people go after college? Everywhere. There are people that go on cruises, national tours, become a barista at your local coffee shop. They teach, they get certified in a survival job like spin or something. Like everybody's path is different. So, like you could go to college and decide that you don't want to do this. You could go to college for something else besides music theater and decide that you want to do this. Everybody's path is different. And so everybody's path after college is different. Is it pretty important to study theater in college to succeed at a career in the industry? I would say it's important to get training, but I don't think that you have to do it through school. It's in my opinion that no matter how naturally talented you are, you still need some polishing. So, most people choose to get a BA or a BFA because it allows you dedicated time to train, make connections, and kind of learn how the industry works in school before really hopping in. But I mean, others study something completely different and take a ton of classes like during school or after they graduate and find a lot of success. So, no matter what you decide to do, just make sure that you get training from people that you trust and are reputable. It doesn't necessarily have to be through school. So, following that, how can you grow your skills without going to school? So, take class. For music theater performers, I recommend finding a dance studio that teaches multiple styles of dance at multiple levels at multiple different times a day, so that way you can train as often as you can in whatever style that you think can serve you and grow your skill. My advice, personally, if you're a beginner, start with ballet and jazz and then kind of move into modern, contemporary, and music theater style dance. Bonus points if this studio offers tap. Please, if that is an option for you, take it. It is such a valuable skill that I do not have, and I wish that I had. So if you have the chance, take it. And if you've got dance experience and are local to Boise and have graduated high school, Artistic Dance Company has great classes on Thursday nights for experienced adults. So make sure to look them up if that is you out there. Second, find a vocal coach who can get you to where you want to go. It's okay to shop around a little bit. Like, remember that you are paying them to help you. So make sure to find somebody that you trust to be vulnerable around, because singing in front of one person is hard, even when it's their job. Trust me, I teach. I know it's always scary. Also, make sure that they are current on industry standards and are committing to helping you get in the direction that you want to take with your artistry. It's always sad when there's somebody that you trust that seems to disagree with you on where you want to take your life, you know? So make sure that your priorities and morals and all those things align. Find an acting coach or a studio near you to take classes like for auditioning and improv. I've personally heard a lot of great things about the Boise Acting Studio if you're local to Boise, and that's another great skill that can help you if you aren't in school for music theater. And also, like, stalk people on social media and steal like an artist. If you love how someone performed something in a concert at 54 Below, like, try and emulate it, see how it fits, see if you like it. Be willing to experiment with your artistry and expose yourself to a lot of different ways that you can do something, right? Like, I didn't like the song. Maybe this is a hot take. I didn't like the song Somewhere That's Green from Little Shop until I saw Joy Woods do it. Now I have a completely different way of viewing how that song should be sung. So, like, steal. What skills besides theater basics do I need to make it far? So I would say networking, initiative, determination, being a kind person. No one wants to spend 12 hours a day in a room with somebody that they don't like. Basic understanding of lighting, video, sound editing, and editing software for self-tapes. That's another whole other episode I could do. Let me know down below if you want that. And always being willing to learn. There's always something new that you can learn. So make sure that you don't ever get to a point in your career where you are above learning something new, because none of us are above that. And become an expert at handling rejection. When you get to a certain level, everyone's talented. Like, know that. You're a part of that group. So when you're auditioning, there are so many reasons that you'll get told no, that have absolutely nothing to do with you. You could not fit in the costume. You're not the height that they need to be the opposite of the other lead that they already cast. You were wearing red that day. You remind the casting director of their ex. Like you were too pretty and they needed a different look. Find things that ground you and like to tell yourself that help you move past rejection, just because there's so much of it in this industry that if you don't know how to handle it, it will bog you down and burn you out. And also make your own work. Like, for example, this project has helped me and my creativity so much. Find something that you're passionate about and run with it, because then not only are you working and you're finding joy out of a creative endeavor, but it also becomes something that you can market yourself with and that can put you on the map so you can get cast in things. For this next section, I would like to thank the Pope, Robin, Chase, Jesse, Big Pump, and Lucy for these questions. What are some differences between doing a community show, a school show, and a professional show? So, first of all, when you're working a professional contract, you get paid. Duh. And then, secondly, there's typically more structure to how the whole thing's run. Like in a community or a school setting, the whole process is probably going to be more homogenized and everyone will kind of be working on everything together, whether that's the set, costumes, running backstage, etc. And then there's also probably going to be a lower quality of performance, just because that this is a learning ground for people gaining experience, and it's something that people are doing for fun because they love theater and don't want it to be their job. Like community and school theater is so important because it's the training grounds for everything, right? And so it is something that, yeah, sure, might not be run like a union contract, but it is the backbone of the American theater industry, and it is super important. So then professional theater, on the other hand, there may or may not be union protections within the job that you're working. So job titles and responsibilities are going to be very concrete and siloed. Like there's typically also more money involved. So the sets and costumes might be a little bit more elevated, and there's typically a much higher expected level of professionalism and skill because this is now something that people are paying somebody to do. So like whether that's backstage, whether that's on stage, now that you've exited the community, the school theater, you're now graduating into professional theater and you're expected to know your stuff pretty much. Where are places to audition in Idaho for regional theater and other professional companies, etc.? So, unfortunately, in Idaho, there are not a ton of places to do local professional theater. Like BCT, for any listeners out there who might be in high school, has camps and semester-long theater making programs called BCT's Theater Lab. That's a really great way to make connections and get to know the creative team behind BCT. So like if they're doing the production of The Wolves and you're in high school, like an opportunity like that comes up, they might discuss it with you, and that could be something that is your first contract. Like ISF also has their annual Boise Equity Auditions, Idaho Shakespeare Festival, for those of you who aren't familiar. But you don't need to be Equity to show up. You'll just be seen once everybody from Equity is done. And also, that's another episode that can be like an entire like conversation. So if anybody's confused about what equity is, let me know down in the comments, and maybe that can be a future episode. And then also, as far as non-equity professional theater, Starlight Mountain Theater up in Garden Valley has auditions every February or so, and Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater has auditions every January, or you can submit virtually for them. So for anyone living here, I highly recommend searching for theaters that accept virtual auditions that are outside of Idaho. So if it's feasible for you to travel and do a contract during the summer or after you graduate, etc., like you might find a lot more opportunities that way, just because Idaho is pretty small as far as the theater scene goes. Like as well as I know a lot of close friends of mine who also found a lot of success at audition conferences like the SETCs, UPTAs, and A1s too. So if that's something that you're interested in and is feasible for you, make sure to research those because they're a really valuable resource. What do you advise looking out for in contracts when you're accepting a role? So I always break down what you're making hourly and what a day or week looks like in the contract. So for example, can you negotiate for higher pay? Like clearly they want you, so don't be afraid to ask questions and have a reasonable conversation about what you think that your compensation should be. Like what else is in your compensation package? What's the housing situation? Do they pay for meals? Do you get to take free classes at the job that you have an apprenticeship at? Like, do you get benefits? I mean, When you're just starting out, it might be smart just to like take the job because even though if all of the above is kind of crappy, you get work. And then once you start to get work regularly, you can be a little bit more picky choosy about where you audition for. And also, once you graduate, you might have a certain minimum that you need to be making on a contract to live. So just be ready to look for jobs that can either allow you to work a second job, like as a barista, a fitness instructor, or like something that's virtual, or can pay you enough to be financially stable during a contract. That's kind of what I always look for. And I know it might be shallow to be like, oh, the compensation is the first thing I look at. But like also, like, I do need to pay rent. So, yeah, that's kind of what I look for. Can someone with a full time job still work in the theater for fun? I love the art, but want to find time. Of course, there are tons of ways to be involved in the theater community. Like go to shows and events at local theaters, join a community theater that rehearses at night, support theater creatives online, and also like create your own art at home. What's a song that you love to sing? Do you want to learn how to play an instrument? What is a show you want to read through with all your friends for fun? Get into reading plays. Like there's a million different ways to support the arts and support theater that don't necessarily mean that it has to be your full-time job. Find little ways that it can fit into your life that you enjoy that can make sure to fulfill you even though it's not your full-time job. Can you work for a professional theater company, not just Broadway, without a degree in music theater? Yes, like just like I said earlier, you can do anything that you set your mind to in this industry, even if you didn't go to school for it. So this applies to all theaters, from regional theaters all the way up to Broadway. Like the sky's the limit for you, even if you didn't go to school. You can do anything. How old do you think is too late to start? I personally don't think it's ever too late to start. I think that there's like a general feeling in the arts, especially in theater, because we're more forward facing. Like we are the product you're selling, not a canvas or a film or something like that, that we're all running out of time. Like, I know that it's been really hard for me recently, now that I'm about to graduate, to look on my For You page and see that all of a sudden people on Broadway are not that much older than me. I mean, like Emma Flynn, I'm obsessed with her, by the way. She's literally amazing. I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen the videos of her, but oh my gosh, go watch them if you can. She just made her Broadway debut as Glinda, and she's only 23. Like, that's a year older than I am. Or like Fabiola, the woman who's leading the national tour of & Juliet, she just booked a national tour right out of high school. Like what if I don't accomplish any of the goals that I have set for myself ever? Or that when I decide that I want a family and I can't do both, like even though I know that you can do both, it's just a lot harder. Like, it's so stressful. And even when it's hard and you're kind of done freaking out, I think it's important to remember that this industry has roles for everyone. Like someone has to play the moms in Dear Evan Hansen. Someone has to play old Noah in The Notebook. Someone has to be in Come From Away, and someone needs to be like the grandma in Anastasia. Everyone's path is different, and this lifestyle is so hard. So if you need to take a non-traditional route to get to where you want to go, or realize later in life that this is for you, do it. Like, don't tell yourself that you're too old to experience joy in something new. Like, to be cringe is to be free. Do it. Do it. We'd love to have you. All right. And thank you to Robin for asking these next two questions. How are you able to balance your work life and your personal life? Honestly, I'm a really crap person to ask because I've only kind of recently begun to get a handle on this. And I've been doing, again, like I said, like I've been doing this pretty full time since I was in third grade. So I'm really lucky to have found a partner that supports me in everything that I do. Like, he is my superhero when it comes to taking life things off of my plate, like going and getting groceries or unloading the dishwasher. Like, it's just little things like that that just take one thing off of my plate, especially while I'm still in school. That helps so much. So whether you're doing that for yourself and being like really organized, like, hey, I'm going to take a day or a half a day and I'm going to meal prep, or I know that I have this laundry schedule, so I don't even have to think about it. So whether, like, again, you're doing that for yourself or somebody else is doing it for you, set yourself up for success by just making everyday things like that a little bit more manageable and easy for yourself. Limit what extra things that you say yes to. Like, will something extra make you more happy than stressed to be involved in it? Is this pushing anything else off of your plate? Finally, make time in your schedule to put down your phone, get off of your Google Calendar, your Gmail, and spend quality time with the people that you care about. Things like, for example, things that I do are late night hangouts with my friends that I've spent all day in rehearsal with so that way we can be friends and not be working. I have lunch weekly with my mom or dad. I try and spend at least one night a week just hanging out with my boyfriend with like without homework, without anything. Even though I need to get better about that one. I love you, baby. And making sure to ask my friends how they're doing and just take a second to check in on them at least kind of once a week, just to really try and be present, I think is what helps me. Like one of my favorite quotes is, it's like, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. And that's why we call it the present. Like, I'm, especially in this really busy season of being about to graduate, really trying to remember that. So that's something that helps me. How to prioritize mental health with a job that can take such a big toll on it. So, honestly, this one's really hard too. Like, as someone who struggled with really severe anxiety and the saddies for a long time, navigating this career can be really tricky because sometimes you cannot tell what stress is being created by the monster in your head or the lifestyle that you are inflicting upon yourself with like this dream that you're trying to achieve and the hustle that comes with that. So, personally, I feel like this year has gotten a lot better for me. And I think that honestly, a lot of it's because the school part of school has calmed down for me a lot, like in senior year. I've spent the last 3 years of college really overloading myself academically to the point where I was like breaking down over the stress about my grades and I was getting zero sleep and I was not taking care of myself or my relationships. And you add life stuff on top of that and you get one very stressed out and sad bean. So, one thing I'll say is if you're doing if you're doing the academic arts right now in general, I am standing with you. You're a soldier and you can do this. Because college itself is really stressful, and let alone the schedules that we have to not only be successful in school but also set ourselves up to be successful once we graduate. So with all that in mind, here are a couple things that have helped me and other people that I know. Surround yourself with people that don't bring your energy down. You might be really, really tired walking into a rehearsal, but if that rehearsal is full of people that you would do anything for, you're going to show up fulfilled every time. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally and physically. It's your job. As my queen, Cara Rose DiPietro, says, putting yourself and your health first is actually what putting your career first looks like. Our bodies are our instruments. So, make time to get as much sleep as you can. Do the PT, take the vocal rest day, do the 7 a.m. workout, schedule the appointment with the ENT, eat food that fuels you, get the massage, steam, journal. Not only will it'll help your mental health because unfortunately getting sleep and working out and eating healthy and it really does make a difference in what your body's able to do and how it's able to stay healthy while you do it. And so I know that sometimes when you're first starting out, it can be really overwhelming of not only do I have to train, but I also have to train to get my life together. So that way, once I do book a job, I can sustain it and I can be healthy while I'm doing it. Remember that it doesn't have to be perfect. There just has to be effort that's there. And that's all that matters. You have time to be able to develop your skills, not only as the literal skills that you need as an actor and as a performer, but also the skill of living the lifestyle of a performer too, because it's very specific. I gave up gluten because I need to be able to sing better. Gluten, you guys. Gluten. And then be intentional about what decreases your stress. So for me, that's putting my phone down and blocking myself from my email and my social media. Brick, you should sponsor me. It's also spending time with my friends and my family. It's yoga and spin classes. It's sleeping in. For you, it might be something different, but don't just go off of vibes. Know really specifically what makes you less stressed about your life and strategically sprinkle it into your schedule so you don't feel like you're going to explode 99% of the time. All right. For this second to last section, this is going so fast and I love it. And I love all of these questions and I love all the people that gave me questions and I'm just so grateful for this project. Anyway, happy moment over. Thank you so much to the Pope, Julian, Bella, Hunter, Chase, and Lucy for this next group of questions. What is your personal process like when you're connecting to a character? So I usually take about an hour or so and write out a profile of who they are. So For example, like inner child work works super well for me. Like, how did they grow up? What was their relationship to their parents and their family like? Did they have friends? Who were they? What activities did they do? What's changed between now and then and when the play is taking place? How does that affect how they interact with others and present themselves? Like, what is their relationship to their friends in the play? Like, whenever I direct, also, it's something that I have my actors do, and I've had feedback that's typically really positive about that. And so that's always something that I personally recommend. What is the finishing touch to make a character really come to life? I personally love a master gesture. So, if you are unfamiliar with what that is, Google it. There's a ton of really good resources about it. A master gesture is something that you can do in a play physically that indicates who the character is. So, for example, right now I'm playing Marty in Greece, and I've been really loving having her thing in dances and just kind of in her physical habit be kind of like plumping her hair, like poofing her hair, because it's a little vain, but not so much that she's looking in a mirror all the time or touching her makeup and her nails. Like she's just kind of like making sure that her hair looks cute and like feeling herself a little bit in everyday conversation. So, like, not only does that make your character recognizable from far away, like if the audience sees me doing that, it kind of reminds them who I am, but it also can act as a key into your character's physicality if you're struggling to figure out the details of that, which I really often do. So a master gesture really helps me. What's your favorite part about theater in Idaho? I love how much it has grown since when I was growing up. I mean, I don't mean to sound super old when I say this, but like when I was growing up in Boise, you either did theater at school, at a summer camp, like Boise Little Theater, Stagecoach, or MTI, and that was it. So now to see like new companies like Huckleberry Star, Boise Bard, Eagle Theater Company, like all those things to come up is huge. I think that a lot of that is also thanks to the Patty Duke Awards because it's kind of given high schools and the people who are participating in the high schools an incentive to step up their game. And I think that has caused a lot more interest in the arts and a lot more of a community around the arts. And so I just can't wait to see how it continues to grow. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, Boise Bard Players is a Shakespeare-based company here in Boise. They perform all around the city, and they are a professional company. And so, if you are a Shakespeare nerd and would love to perform some Shakespeare, but you aren't quite ready to be at ISF or another equity house, make sure to check them out because they're amazing. What high school plays have I seen around? I've seen well, I graduated from Timberline. If you didn't know, go Wolves. I've seen every Timberline show except for Shrek this past year, unfortunately, because I was out of town since I graduated, and I'm not going to tell you when. And then last year, I also saw some great shows at Meridian, Owyhee, Nampa, out in Highland, and like this year, I've gotten to see some and hear about some more great stuff that's happening all around the state through the Patty Duke Awards, and I just love getting to see people grow and shine at such a young age. It's like watching high school shows is one of my favorite parts of my job. What is your favorite archetype to play? So, I love a character who's like spunky and kind of a pain in the other lead's butt until they realize that they're falling in love with each other and then like the character kind of gets it together. It's really fun to be able to switch between the spunky and like unafraid to speak your mind and kind of, I don't know, like comedic, and then you get to kind of all of a sudden have this moment, and then you get to have this usually a pretty dramatic transformation that's like, oh, look at me, I'm a pretty girl, like, you know what I mean? I think that's why I personally loved playing roles like Maria and Ariel so much, is because they are the love interest without just having to kind of sit there and look pretty, you know what I mean? And then what are some memorization techniques you use? So for me personally, I will say either have something I have to memorize or something that I want to memorize. So I'll recite it a couple times just to get it in my brain so that way I understand what it's about, so that way it's in my muscle memory, etc. And then I will write it down word for word. Like, I don't care if it's a whole scene in a script. I don't care if it's a whole monologue. I will write it down word for word. I will directly copy it and I'll say it out loud as I do it. So that way you're maximizing all the different ways that you learn. Like, you're saying it, you're writing it down, and you're seeing it. And so your brain has the best chance it can to absorb all of that information. So then once I do that, I'll recite it again, see how much I can get off of that last pass. I'll usually take a break, let my brain kind of marinate on it, is what I like to call it. And then I'll do the whole process again. I will recite it again. I will write it down. I'll recite it again. Usually I'm getting pretty close at this point, and then I'll essentially repeat that, and then I will go and do it. Another thing I love for shows where there's lines, it's not so much like a monologue where you can just go, is flashcards. I'm a really big flashcard person. And not only does this help you do it out of order, so you really know it instead of just the order that it's in, but it also helps the person that might be helping you with your lines because it's really clear cut instead of them having to kind of like read the whole script. And then I also, when I'm memorizing a script, I go into my voice memo app, and I know that there's line reader apps and things that you can get, but this is just what works for me. I go into my voice memo app and I'll read a scene in the script, and I'll say everybody else's lines and save it as a voice memo. And I'll do that for the whole play, musical, whatever. So that way I can practice my cue lines and my own at the same time. So that way, like when I'm listening to that voice memo, like for Little Mermaid, it would be like, "Squawk, Ariel, I can't believe you're doing this." Pause. Oh my gosh, well, I guess you have to go back below the sea. You know what I mean? Like it gives me a scene partner that's recorded. Sorry. Oh man. It gives me a scene partner that is recorded without me necessarily having to be around someone who can help me with the scene all the time, you know. So, yeah, I might cut that part. We'll see. We'll see in the final edit. All right. What are the best audition songs you've done? I'm not sure about the best. Maybe my favorite. I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of both in there. I recently did Little Miss Perfect at an audition conference, and I was really proud of how that went. It is super duper high and super kind of emotionally intense for me, and I love that piece, and I was really proud of how it went. I also love to whip out Times Are Hard for Dreamers from Amelie, Pretty Baby from Back to the Future, and Greenfinch and Linnet Bird from Sweeney Todd, just because I love to sing them and I think that they sound good in my voice, and they have not led me astray in auditions so far. So shout out to those songs. And then last question before we get into our last segment, favorite post-audition treat. I love a good ice cream. I love a good ice cream. Extra points if it's like a milkshake or a frosty kind of texture, and then you have piping hot fast food French fries with it. That's my personal favorite. Or like a really, 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 really strong margarita. Depends on how the audition went. All right. Oh my gosh. All right. That was the last one. I hope that all of this was helpful, but don't go yet. Usually, if you listen to the other episodes of this show, which if you haven't, you should, because it's my senior project and I've spent a lot of time on it and it's something I want to continue to do because I really enjoy doing it. We usually end this episode with rapid fire theater trivia questions to be able to kind of like liven up the end of an episode, because we all got here by being your average theater kid. We all got here by sitting on like the musty couches in the theater classroom, and by singing show tunes in the car at 2 a.m. and by rating an IHOP and all of those different things, no matter if you're a Broadway performer or if you are one of my students who very amazingly submitted to this episode. So instead of theater trivia, I asked all of the people who submitted on my form what their theater kid horror story was. So they're going to remain anonymous. If you know, you know, but I'm going to go ahead and read their responses. And we'll start with mine. So my personal theater kid horror story was the worst audition ever, TM, where I danced so badly at a college audition that instead of like the teacher demonstrating kind of how to time step really quick, they just had me stomp on the beat. It was so embarrassing. There was only 4 girls in the audition. I did so bad. There was a miscommunication in the music part. So when I sang, I was kind of like going rogue from the accompanist. Like, it was the worst audition I've ever had. It was so bad to the point where I was laughing in the audition room because it was so embarrassing and so terrible. And it is safe to say that I did not get accepted to that school. But honestly, thank goodness, because Boise State has turned out to be really awesome. And if it weren't for that audition, well, I mean, there's plenty of reasons why that audition didn't go well, but who knows? If that audition had gone well, maybe I wouldn't be here. So I'm honestly all right with it. All right, let's get into these other answers. All right, so first one. I had food poisoning the night before 2 college auditions and was in the bathroom on the floor for 4 hours and still couldn't keep anything down the next morning. Stressed face. Girl, I was in your same boat a couple weeks ago, and I'm so sorry. My condolences. I'm sure you booked, though, and I actually know who this was, and you did book anyway, so I'm insanely proud of you. I did a production of Pirates and Penzance in high school where I played a pirate and a police officer. My director decided that police officers must be on roller skates, so I had to learn how to roller skate within 3 weeks of opening night. Keep in mind, I had no experience with them. She ended up writing in to the play that my character was bad at it. On closing night, I accidentally fell off the stage. On the bright side, I'm now pretty good at roller skating. That's crazy. And I hope that you're okay. Don't ever audition for Starlight Express. In my first ever show, I had 0 lines. I was the footman in The Importance of Being Earnest. I opened and closed doors and set tables. Easy enough. One night, a fellow actor and I misheard a cue for us to be at the door for our entrance, and we got there just as the show opened, like 30 some odd minutes before our actual cue. We just rolled with it by going from that point in the show where he had entered, and effectively we cut the second act of the show in half. The plot did not make sense for the audience that night. I love that. Oh my gosh. I too have also done that. You are not alone, soldier. I had a show in southern Idaho in the middle of winter. We had a physical call sheet and a digital call sheet. Usually, we would look at the digital one on our phones, but the one time we look at the physical copy, it was wrong. We were late by 30 minutes and it was super snowy, and the venue didn't shovel the backloading dock, so we had to unload the set into the streets, lift it up onto the curb, roll everything through the box office, down to the house, unload all the costumes and props and puppets from the carts and set, lift everything onto the stage, and then get ready and then perform. Fortunately, everybody was understanding. Unfortunately, I ripped my pants on an exposed nail on stage on the butt. I had an underlayer on under my costume. One of my favorite shows, TBH, and we went for some pretty fire sushi afterwards. I love that. I'm really glad that you had an underlayer on under your costume. When I was auditioning for a summer stock theater, I got called back to be Minnie Faye in Hello Dolly. I prepared her monologue, she says, when she's first introduced for 3 hours during the callback while I was waiting. I was the second girl to read for her, and then when I walked in, the director asked me if I could somehow add an iconic Minnie Faye laugh somewhere in my monologue. To make matters even worse, he then opened the door to the waiting room and asked every girl waiting to prepare the laugh as well. I was not planning to add a laugh at all, by the way. I think I blacked out during the audition, but I still remember that laugh that protruded from my mouth and was something probably close to a Janice laugh from Friends mixed with the goose. They kind of looked at me afterwards and went, "Okay, thank you. That's all we need to see from you." I didn't get the part. LMAO. Oh, this just made my day. I'm really glad that that gets to be a part of your theater kid memories for the rest of time. I let out a laugh in rehearsal the other day that sounded like that one that Alphaba does when she's trying to prove to Glinda that she's a witch in Act 2. I don't know where it came from, and honestly, I relate to you, friend. Okay, I had an audition where they brought us in pairs randomly. The girl I went in with had prepped the same cut of the same song. It was horrible. They did cast me over her though. Period. And you know what? You won. You won. Okay, this next one. One time, our director had someone quit the day of the show, so the teacher called and had a favor for one of the classmates' siblings to come in and learn the lines a bit before the show, and the show was an absolute mess. Yes. But did we do it? Yes. That's all that matters. And that's on perseverance. All right. I accidentally said a line that skipped half of Act 2 in Noises Off and made everyone scramble. Hey, you and the other person can be friends. When I was around 11 years old, I didn't know how to French braid, so I was running around aimlessly being sent from one person to the next to get help. When call time to warm up came around, the director saw my hair still wasn't done and snapped, "Don't stand there like a 5-year-old waiting for something to happen. Go find someone to do your hair." This was said in front of the whole cast. To this day, I'm still worried about getting my hair done in time. Safe to say, I now successfully know how to French braid. Ah! I'm sorry that that happened to you. I, too, have also had the director say some really horrible things to me in front of the entire cast, and I really hope that some nice stage mom was able to braid your hair very quickly after that. On the opening afternoon of our school spring play, the curtain opened at the start of Act Two and knocked a prof off the stage. Our director had to sneak around the front and put it back on. Later in the same scene, it was a present opening scene. I went to pick up the present I needed to talk about and then realized the actor in charge of setting it had forgot to set it. It caused us to skip a bunch of lines and threw off the whole scene. Also, throughout the show, there were middle school boys in the audience catcalling us and trying to have conversations with us. Okay, I do know the person that submitted this, and knowing the school that you go to, this is kind of a crazy poll. So I'm really proud of you for persevering because I'm surprised that that wasn't shut down kind of immediately. That's awesome. Okay. In our audition, I had to start over mid monologue because I forgot the line and then stood in silence and said, LOL might be, and then started the monologue over. And you know what? That's some perseverance. And I bet that the delivery after that was probably perfect. All right. My senior show was a bit of a spooky one. My big scene at the end was supposed to freak people out. On opening night, towards the end, some people started laughing. Whether or not it was an uncomfortable laugh, I don't know. And when I started doing my spooky bit in the scene, I kept hearing the laughter. And I kept hearing it until the play ended. I couldn't help but cry after the show because I thought I did a bad job being serious. Turns out there wasn't even that much laughter. It was all in my head. I also could have sworn I saw a ghost after the show closed, but that's something else. Wow. Your performance was so good it was spiritual, I guess. Oh my gosh. That's you're in touch with something of a higher power, man. Good for you. Okay. Wow. I think that that is the perfect one to end this episode on. So, thank you so much again to everybody who submitted. Thank you all so much for listening. And this is the final episode of what is going to be submitted for my senior project. If you didn't know already, this is something I've been working on for the past about year and a half now. And I'm really proud of where it's been and where it's going. And make sure to keep in touch. So, I love you all. And this is your average theater kid signing out.